Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another Power Rankings video to discuss. Week 6 of Power Rankings is here, and there's been some change up at the top of the Power Rankings. With all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey channel. Now before we get straight, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support. We're new to this you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to the subscribe button down below and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so we can discuss today's video. So in today's video, we got a couple of interesting things to discuss as we're doing another Power Rankings video. Week 6 has happened in the NHL and we're going to do our Power Rankings. So as usual, we'll do our top 10 plus our 4 honorable mentions. A couple of change-ups in the honorable mentions. I don't think there's been any change-up in the top 10 with the teams at least, but there has been some definite movement inside the top 10, so we'll get to all that here. We're going to start with the 4 honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is a team who had a fantastic week last week, and that is the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken wound up winning 3 of their 4 games last week. I'm going to start having teams who won at least 3 games in a week, which is a fantastic and big feat, to at least be an honorable mention the week after that they do that. And the Kraken were one of the teams this week who had 3 wins. They went 3-1-0. They beat the Columbus Blue Jackets and come from behind style. They also beat another team, then they beat the New York Islanders, and then they got shut out by the New York Rangers. So it was an intriguing game. It was a close game against the Rangers too. So they now had an overly bad week. They got back up to above 500 before they lost to the Rangers and got back down to 500. So it was an interesting game. It was an interesting week there for the Kraken, but they go 3-1-0. Once again, like I said, they're back down to 500, so there's no way I was going to put them in my top 10, but after a 3-win week last week, I have to put them in my honorable mentions. They had a fantastic week. Gord looking good. Tanav's looking good. Schwartz is looking good. Beniers has had a fantastic couple of games. Goaltending wise, the cores actually look pretty good. Grubauer's looking all right. So Kraken are looking pretty good right now, and I'm putting them in my honorable mentions here in the 4th spot. My 3rd honorable mention is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Only had 2 games this past week, but they were against really good teams and they dominated. They wound up being the Winnipeg Jets 4-1, and they shut out the New Jersey Devils 4-0. So being 2 top 10 teams in my power rankings at least, I have to put them in an honorable mention category. Now there's still only 3 games above 500, and just before that 2-game winning streak, they lost 4 in a row. So I'm not going to put them in my top 10 rankings at this point in time. But those 2 wins were impressive, and they keep on winning and turning up. They're going to find themselves in the top 10 in not too distant future. Tampa is looking really good. Kucherov's looking good. So is Hedman. So is Gensel. So is Paul. They're getting some good bottom 6 scoring. Chafee's looking good. They're getting some really good help on the defensive end. Perbix, Chernak, they look good. Vasilevsky's having some fantastic games over the past couple of games. So some really good stuff there, and I have Tampa as my 3rd honorable mention. My 2nd honorable mention is the Vancouver Canucks. Last week, they didn't do a whole bunch, going 2-2-0. They wound up beating the Calgary Flames to open the week, then lost to the New York Islanders. Then they beat the Chicago Blackhawks, and then they lost to the Nashville Predators. So it wasn't an overly fantastic week. You lose to the Islanders in regulation, you lose to the Predators in regulation, 2 teams who aren't overly great. That's not going to be overly good. They do beat the Blackhawks and then the Flames 4-game point streak, which is good, but still, I don't think it's overly great. And I thought about putting the Canucks in because they do have a pretty good record, but I think after going 2-0 this week and losing to Nashville, I kept them on my top 10 power rankings. But I do have them as an honorable mention number 2, so I do still have them in there. Pearson's starting to look a little bit better. Brandstrom's having a really good week. Miller's having a pretty good week. Hughes looks good, on top of a couple of other players who are looking pretty good as well. So all in all, pretty good stuff there from the Canucks, and they're just outside my top 10 as my 2nd honorable mention. And my 1st honorable mention here is the Los Angeles Kings. Another team had a decent week. They went 1-1-0. I'm not exactly sure who they lost to at the beginning of the week, and then they wound up being the Detroit Red Wings on Saturday. So it was not an overly fantastic week there for the Kings. Definitely one they probably want to have back. I think going 2-0 might have maybe held my hand to put them into the top 10 again, but I do have them as my 1st honorable mention. They're 10-6-3, and they're still a top team in the Pacific Division, still a win ahead of the Vancouver Canucks, who are 9-5-3. So Kings are looking pretty good. They're already in the double-digit win mark. I just had them slightly, ever so slightly, missing out of the top 10 power rankings this week. So it was a pretty good week there from the Kings, going 1-1-0, but they do wind up still staying outside my top 10. So those are my 4 honorable mentions. And lastly here, going over to my top 10 power rankings. So we're going to first start with number 10, and that's New York Rangers. The Rangers had a fantastic week this past week. Started out sour by losing to Winnipeg Jets, getting doubled up 6-3, but then they had back-to-back back-to-back wins. The first on Thursday against the San Jose Sharks, then on Sunday, like we talked about, against the Seattle Kraken. So the Kraken and the Sharks one were impressive wins, and the Kraken and Sharks aren't the best of teams right now, but still, they had a couple of really good wins. They did lose to the Jets. Now they were, I think, 8th or 7th last week, so I do bump them down a little bit just because of the quality of wins they had. But they still have a fantastic week. They're up to 11-4-1. They're looking good. Zibanejad, Panarin, Lafreniere, Trocheck, the defense with Fox and Lindgren and Trouba. Shesterkin, quick, actually got the shutout against Seattle. He's looking fantastic. So pretty good stuff there for the Rangers, but I do drop them from, I think it was 8th or 7th last week to 10th. At number 9, we have the Vegas Golden Knights. I went them up one spot. Just like the Rangers, it's because of the play of opponents. They wound up also going 2-0 last week. They beat the Anaheim Ducks. They beat the Utah franchise in comeback fashion, but they also did lose 5-2 to the Capitals on Sunday. So it wasn't an overly fantastic week from the Knights, but they did pick up 4 of a possible 6 points, and they did beat some of the lower end teams. So it was a pretty good week there for the Golden Knights, improving to 11-5-2. And because of the fact that I think Anaheim and Utah are a little bit better, and they put up a little more of a fight against Washington than the Rangers did against the Jets, I'm going to put the Knights a little bit ahead of the Rangers here. Just a flip-flop here, but pretty good stuff there. Hurdle's looking good. Carlson's looking good. Stone's looking good. Pietrangelo, Theodore, Hanifin are all looking good. Heel's actually having a pretty good season so far, so really good stuff there for Vegas, and they bumped them up to number 9. At number 8, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were number 9 last week. I also bumped them up one, just like the Golden Knights and the Rangers. They also got 2 of a possible 3 wins this week. They lost in regulation in the Battle of Ontario to the Ottawa Senators, getting shut out. It wasn't an overly great game there against Ottawa, but then they were able to win 2 games. Now the second half of a back-to-back against the Washington Capitals, the only team last week to beat Washington, which was fantastic. And then they got an overtime win over the Edmonton Oilers after blowing the lead late. So a couple of OT wins. They lost to the Ottawa Senators. It wasn't an overly fantastic and pretty week there for the Leafs, but they have now won 5 of 6. They're looking lethal. They're looking pretty good. So I'm going to put them here at number 8. Even without Matthews, Marner, Nylander, McMahon, Tavares, Nyes, they're all looking really good offensively. And then McCabe, Riley, Tanev on the defensive end, and Woll and Stillars and that all look really good right now. So interesting note there. And number 7 in my power rankings are the Florida Panthers. They were, I think, 3rd or 4th last week, so I do drop them here because of 2 embarrassing losses to the Devils. They lost to open the week 4-1 to the New Jersey Devils on the second half of a home-and-home. They lost 6-2, so it was not an overly great game there from the Panthers against the Devils in those 2 games. But then they turned things around, and on Saturday they shut out the Jets 5-0. So it was an impressive week there from the Panthers, losing 2 straight to really good Devils team and then beating the Jets. So I was considering potentially moving them a little bit higher, but I do drop them here to number 7. They fall to 12-5-1 on the year. They're just a slight bit ahead of the Maple Leafs right now. So it's a pretty good week there from the Panthers to beat the Jets and shut them out. Bobrovsky's looking good. So is Knight. Still, it's a bad loss there against the Devils, and I do have to drop them at least a little bit. But still, the offense looking good. Reinhart, Barkov, Samoskevich, Lundell. So those guys are all still looking good. Ekblad Force on the defensive end, they look good. So interesting note there, but I do drop the Florida Panthers to 7th. 6th, I have the Minnesota Wild. Didn't have a bad week last week. They went 1-1-0. I do drop them a couple spots as well. They lost narrowly to the Dallas Stars. So it was an interesting game. It was a close game, but the Stars do win 2-1, and then they shut out the Montreal Canadiens 3-0. So it wasn't an overly fantastic week there from the Wild. If they had won over Dallas, I would have kept them higher, but I do drop them a little bit because I lost to Dallas. But still, they wound up picking up 2 of a possible 4 points, which isn't overly bad. And Kaprizov, Boldy, Johansson, they're all still looking good on the offense. Brodin's back now. He's looking good on the defense with Faber and Spurgeon. And Gustafsson and Fleury still look pretty good. So all in all, pretty good week there for the Wild. Even held their defensive opponents to 2 goals in 2 games, but still I do drop them here a little bit. At 5th, we had the Dallas Stars. Went 2-0 last week. They had a dominant 7-2, I think, victory over the Boston Bruins. They didn't, like we just talked about, barely edged out the Minnesota Wild before yesterday losing to the Anaheim Ducks. So it wasn't an overly bad week there from the Stars. I would put them a little bit higher if they had beaten the Ducks, but that was a really bad loss. But they put 7 on Boston and beat the Minnesota Wild, so I do have to put them a little bit higher than I had them last week. Dallas is looking pretty good. Marchman's having a fantastic year so far. Sagan's had a pretty good week, so is Duchesne, so is Stankoven, so is Johnston. Dumba's looking pretty good, so is Heiskanen, so is Lindell. Onger and DeSmith and Net are also looking pretty good. So all in all, pretty good stuff there from Dallas, and I'm going to put them up to 5th. Another team who I'm bumping up is the New Jersey Devils. They are at 4th now. They had a 2-0 week last week too. They got shut out by Tampa Bay on Saturday, which was bad, but as we just talked about, had back-to-back wins over the Florida Panthers. So it was also a really close game for most of that game against Tampa. I think it was 2-0 for most of that game, and then the Bolts really pulled away towards the end of the third period. But still, it was a pretty good week there from the Devils to show that they're able to beat the defending Cup champs, not once, but twice, and then had a pretty competitive game against Tampa, even though they lost. So I am bumping them up to 4th after they were a little bit lower in the power rankings last week. Devils had a fantastic week, and Hughes, Heischer, Meyer, Palat on the forward group are all looking really good right now. Defensively, Siegenthaler, Hughes, Hamilton, Nemec, they're all looking pretty good. On the goaltending side, Markstrom and Allen are putting up some pretty good performances. So all in all, a pretty good week there from the Devils and bumping them up to 4th. At 3rd, for the first time in 3 weeks, I have the Jets falling out of the top spot and falling to 3rd. Now, the Jets, for the past, I think, 3 weeks, they had 1st in my power rankings. They were a really good team, so I thought keeping them there was right. But this week was a bad week for the Jets. Started out doubling up New York Rangers 6-3, which was pretty good. But then they wound up losing 4-1 to Tampa and 5-0 to Florida, which were 2 embarrassing losses. So I wasn't going to ever put them down too much because Tampa and Florida are pretty good teams. But given the fact that Jets had won so many games in a row, they had back-to-back losses, I did think maybe putting them a little bit lower, so I'm bumping them down to 3rd. Still having a pretty good season. Hellebuck's really good. Commer's looking really good. The defense is looking really good. Offensively with Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Velarde, they're looking really good. So they're still a pretty good team, but because of back-to-back bad losses to the Florida teams, I'm going to bump the Jets down from 1st to 3rd. At 2nd, and staying in 2nd from last week, is the Carolina Hurricanes. Had another pretty good week this week, going 2-0. They started the week off with a loss to Utah, giving up 3 goals in 2 minutes and 19 seconds. It was a bad loss there to Utah. But then they recovered, bouncing back and being Ottawa 4-0, and then St. Louis 4-1. So it was a pretty fantastic week there from the Carolina Hurricanes as they improved to 13-4-0, which still isn't close to Winnipeg's 15-3-0, but still they're a pretty good team. And Carolina looks pretty good. I don't think they had a bad enough week to bump them from number 2 spots, so I'm going to keep them there. Natchez is having a fantastic year. Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, they're all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Orlov, Slavin, Burns, they're all looking pretty good. And the Nets, Kochekov's had some pretty good games. Even Spencer Martin got the show against Ottawa, so pretty good stuff there from Carolina as they are continuing to soar. And my new number 1 is the Washington Capitals. The Capitals had a pretty much perfect week this week, going 3-0-1. They had the OT loss against Toronto, but then they had 3 wins in a row. They beat the Colorado Avalanche 5-2, beat the Vegas Golden Knights 5-2, and then beat the Utah franchise 6-2. So they had a fantastic week, winning 3 of a possible 4 games, getting 7 of a possible 8 points. And I think that given that fact and the Jets losing 2 of their 3 games this week, I had to put the Caps up to top spot for the first time this season as my top team in the power rankings. They're looking lethal. Ovechkin is leading the league in goals and getting closer and closer to Gretzky every day. Strome's looking good. Mangiapane's looking good. Dubois looking good. McMichael's looking fantastic. On the defensive end, Carlson's looking good. Sandin, a lot of those other defensemen are looking pretty good. And Annette, Thompson, Lindgren are giving them sound goaltending. So all in all, Caps are looking like a pretty sound team right now. And I'm going to put them as my new number 1 in my power rankings. So that's what I'm going to talk about for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below and who you would put in our top 10 power rankings. And if you think I put anyone too high or too low. But just to recap here, my top 10 power rankings for week 6 in the NHL season are at number 10, the New York Rangers, number 9, the Vegas Golden Knights, number 8, the Toronto Maple Leafs, number 7, the Florida Panthers, number 6, the Minnesota Wild, number 5, the Dallas Stars, number 4, the New Jersey Devils, number 3, the Winnipeg Jets, number 2, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the number 1 team is the Washington Capitals. And that's my power rankings for week 6 of the NHL season. So that's all I'm going to talk about for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think about all of this? Are you surprised that I put the Caps up number 1? And what else would you say about my top 10 power rankings? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm talking about for today. If you like this video, if you're returning, subscribe down below. Thank you all for your support. We're going to help you guys. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so you can also listen to this video. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis. So if you have to check that out, the link down in the description below. And can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.